So today I'm starting a new series. This series is going to be standalone. It doesn't have marketing, it doesn't have any of that, but what I'm seeing a lot of people in the comments and online that are just starting out. So what I wanted to do is, I've had this course on my website for a long time. I've decided to stop charging for it and just put it out there for free. This is my certification class that is part of the course that I offer, that is just to help train employees, to help to be there so when someone new comes on, so you can put them in front of a computer and in 4 hours they can be at least somewhat prepared for cleaning the right way, to clean properly, to know the chemistry, to know how soils, to know how to break them down, to know how to ID fibers, all of that. So this is a full-on certification course. No, it's not IICRC certified. It's just course materials that I put together, the most important concepts that you need to know when you're first starting out. I went for a year or two without knowing these concepts, and when I finally started getting certified, it was eye-opening of what I didn't know about the cleaning industry and how to clean properly. So let's get right into it. This is the first module. We're going to talk straight into fibers, the different fibers that you're going to run into in the cleaning business. So let's get right into it. And please do me a favor, subscribe, give me a thumbs up if you find any value in this, and I'll see you in the next video.
Hello, welcome to Professional Carpet Cleaning. This course is module number 1, and we're covering fibers today. Basically, any fiber that is used in carpet construction today, we're going to be covering those fibers, what's good about them, what doesn't work, which fibers are better than others. So enjoy, have a pencil ready for take notes, and here we go. Basically, when we define fiber, basically any substance that can be made into a yarn, that's pretty broad. So there's going to be things that you can make into a yarn that no, we're not going to be using those for carpet. Fibers that are used for carpet need to have certain characteristics. Number 1, they have to have a high tensile strength. They have to be strong. Number 2, they have to have flexibility. It doesn't feel good to walk on a non-flexible carpet. People want to have a soft feel to the carpet, and the flexibility of the fiber is going to add to that softness. It also needs to have some resistance to heat, light, chemical, abrasives. All of those things, a carpet that loses its dye in light is going to be a problem. And it was a problem with a nylon 6 carpet, would lose a lot of its dye colors. So you'd go into a house and you'd have the carpet under the couch that has always been covered as much brighter and the original color of the carpet, as opposed to everything that was next to a sliding glass door would all be completely faded out. That's because it was a nylon 6 and it was not very resistant to light. To UV light would damage the dyes, so it wouldn't hold on to the dye, and nylon 6 solved that problem. So the more resistance to those things, the better the carpet's going to be. Now, in the last 15 years or so, a lot of things have changed with these fibers, and the fiber content that you're most likely to run into in a residential setting has changed quite a bit. For a very long time, nylon was king in carpet, accounting for most of the market share. Almost everything was nylon. Yes, you had polyesters and olefins, things were still in the market, but nylon was king. It was accounting for over 70% of the market of all the fibers that were being made for carpet. But over the last few years, and this is as a result of a big push for green products, which polyester is one of those things that's made from plastic bottles. So you can see, hey, this is a green product, and they were really pushing polyester for the last 15 years, and as a result, it has gained most of the market share. At 61% of the market share, and this is in 2020, belongs to polyester. And this is, again, residential markets. Commercial markets are a little bit different, and you get polypropylene being one of those fibers that is primarily sold for commercial. It gets a pretty large market share in commercial, not so much in residential. It did have a short time where people were pushing it as kid-proof because you can't stain it, you can't bleach it. So, but the problem with polypropylene is it crushes like no other fiber. It just does not stand up to foot traffic. So it wasn't really a good fit for a long fiber plush carpet. It would just go flat on you. So anyway, over these last few years, polyester has really taken over due to the advertising for green products, as well as the fiber Triexta, which is now at 17% market share. Now, they're really marketing Triexta hard, as they are with polyester being green. The problem with this is they're marketing it as comparable to nylon, which is, if you've been cleaning Triexta and nylon both for a while, you will understand that that is not the case. Triexta does not clean as well as nylon, and it doesn't hold up to traffic as well as nylon. Nylon will still hold up better and clean better than a Triexta. Triexta does have the benefit of not being able to hold staining, so it's a non-absorbent fiber, so it cannot stain. However, it does attract oils. So you'll have the foot traffic that comes from parking lots and just from people walking around outside. The Triexta is going to want to hold on to those items, the oils from the parking lots, the tar, the grease, anything like that, cooking oils, anything that's oily is going to want to attach itself to that Triexta fiber, making it very difficult to release those items from it. Yes, it's impossible to stain the thing, but it's hard to clean the oils off of it. So there's a trade-off. It won't stain, but it's going to be very difficult to clean in the long term when you after people have walked on it for some time, and you've got traffic lanes that are primarily cooking oils from the home and oils from being outside on their shoes, and they've attached themselves to that Triexta fiber and is going to cause a problem for cleaners. So that leaves us with nylon at getting 16% market share. It's still high. It's comparable to Triexta, but it's losing market share all the time because they're pushing the lower priced products. They want to be able to push, hey, our product is the lowest price. Polyester is very, very much cheaper than nylon to produce, so it becomes the king. Even though it crushes and it doesn't hold up, polyester still gets that large market share, 61%. And the more you clean of it, the more you realize the customers hate it because it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good after cleaning. It crushes. It causes problems. Triexta does perform much better. It's, I would say, comparable to nylon in the wearability. It does have its issues. But the fact that it grabs onto oils leaves it, in my opinion, far behind nylon in the cleanability. I can clean nylon much easier than I can a Triexta. So after all the man-made fibers, you do end up with wool at the bottom of the list, with acrylic, of course, being man-made as well, but wool and acrylic at the bottom of this list. Now, wool you see, of course, more in area rugs. You'll get a lot of those. If you're going to start cleaning area rugs, you'll clean a lot of wool area rugs. And there's some wool wall-to-wall as well, primarily very high-end homes where they can afford to put wool in. Now, of course, there's other fibers out there. The seagrass and sisal, yes, there are wall-to-wall installations. They are rare, but they are out there. But they account for a really small percentage of the manufacturing. So that covers the fiber content of most wall-to-wall installations of carpet that you're going to run into. And basically, we're going to put these fibers into two major categories. Basically, we're talking about two main types. We've got natural fibers and we've got man-made fibers. So we got synthetic, or anything from plant or an animal. On the natural side, we're going to have wool, cotton, jute, silk, rayon, sisal, and seagrass. On the man-made side, synthetic, we have nylon, polyester, PTT, which is a name of Triexta. And then we have acrylic, olefin, which is also polypropylene. We have rayon again, and then we have some blended fibers where you take more than one and blend them together. You'll notice that rayon is on both sides, natural and man-made. Rayon is what's called a chemically altered cotton, basically. So it's cotton that's been chemically altered, basically makes a new fiber. So it is the base fibers of cotton, but it is turned into rayon. So it's two different things. That's kind of why I put it on both sides, natural and man-made. Natural fibers, basically we've got plants and animals. Sheep, and then we've got plants like cotton. Also, you've got silk mixed in there. No, you're not going to find silk in carpets too often, but you will find it in area rugs. So as a note here, if it's from plants, you're going to refer to it as a cellulosic fiber, or sometimes possibly a vegetable fiber. One more common thing these fibers have is they are very absorbent. Any natural fiber, whether it's wool, cotton, anything like that, is going to be really absorbent. So you've got to make sure that we're accounting for a longer dry times. It's not going to dry as quickly because it's absorbing so much water. It's going to take a while for that to evaporate out. So as we go into natural fibers, we've got protein, which is wool. So we've got a wool fiber. And we got certain advantages, disadvantages. One thing, just history-wise, it is one of the finest fibers. We've got wool rugs dating back to 2000 BC. So they've been around for a long time. It is very, very strong. It's also flame resistant. So if you go into a Las Vegas casino, look down at the carpet, it is wool. It will not support a flame. They don't want a casino going up in smoke because someone dropped a cigarette. It is acid resistant. It hides soil really well, and we'll go into that later. It's very strong and very flexible. It dyes really easily. That's good and bad. So I listed under advantages. For the manufacturer, it's great. For the cleaner, not so great because it does tend to want to stain easily. That's why in the disadvantages here we see stains easily. It is expensive. It's very expensive to buy a wool carpet. It does tend to produce static electricity. So if you kind of like to shuffle your feet and then you like to shock people, hey, wool carpet might be the way to go. Higher alkalinities can damage wool. We'll go into alkalinity and how that damages and how that works at a later time. And it will dissolve in chlorine bleach. So might not be the best thing to have in a laundry room area, somewhere where you might have bleach. Basically, when we look at a wool fiber, we've got three distinct parts. It's got a cuticle, and that's basically it looks like a scale under a microscope. So if you look at that little outside cuticle area, you can see it looks like scales, and that will tend to repel most soils. It's going to repel liquids and soils both, although it wants to absorb moisture out of the air. So it will repel like big liquids, like full on. If you drop a glass of wine on, it's going to tend to want to repel, but it will absorb moisture out of the air. The cortex, that's the area of the fiber that holds the dyes. When you dye this fiber, that's what's holding the dyes. Most wool is dyed with an acid dye, since alkalinity is going to damage the cuticles. They tend to just kind of break off. Really looks bad after it's been attacked with an alkaline cleaner. The medulla is a hollow area at the core. Wool fibers that have a heavy modulation can be brittle and make it difficult to dye properly. There are several major strengths to that of a wool fiber. Okay, so the major things we're looking at is it won't hold a flame. It will char, but it will not burn, so it won't hold. It just kind of self-extinguishes. It is, like I said, very strong. It's the most resilient of all fibers used in carpet. So if you take a wool fiber and you bend it kind of back and forth on itself 20,000 times before it's going to snap. So no other fiber will do that. It does have the ability to release and hold large amounts of water vapor. As a result, the home that you install a wool carpet in is going to have a more consistent humidity. 4, wool is opaque. You can't see through it. This is a huge advantage. So you might have, like for instance, a wool area rug that's very small, maybe a 4x3, something like that, can hold 3 pounds of dirt per square foot before it even looks dirty. And that's because you can't see through the fiber. On a normal, like a man-made carpet fiber, you can see through it. It's like taking a clear piece of plastic and holding it up to the light. You can see the light right through it, as opposed to just holding up a black piece of hose. You can't see through it. So what happens is since the light's not reflecting through it, it doesn't tend to alter the way it looks when it's dirty, because it's not reflecting, a reflection of soil. It's just looking the way it looks. So it's very, very good as far as that aspect. It never looks dirty. Even when it's just nasty, it just doesn't look dirty. Silk, it's the only natural fiber that is put out in a continuous filament. So we can go 300 to 1600 yards in length. It's made by caterpillars, silkworms. The silk they produce are used to form their cocoons. So the silk's very expensive. Typically, you're only going to find it, you're only going to find it in hand-knotted, typically Chinese Oriental rugs. There's 3 types of silk. There's cultivated silk, wild silk, raw silk. It is non-flammable. Again, it's very strong, very anti-static. So as opposed to wool, which tends to want to create static electricity, it's a natural anti-static fiber. Disadvantages: it's really expensive. Again, it's absorbent. It is also damaged by a high alkalinity and possible texture change after getting it wet. So this is going to be one of those things that you got to watch out if you're going to do area rugs at all. If it has silk, you might get a texture change after you clean it. Next, we're looking at cotton. Cotton is a cellulosic fiber. It's derived from the cotton plant. You're going to find it in backing yarns, woven carpets. There's a lot of just specialty rugs. The backings to most woven rugs are cotton. It's not usually found in manufactured carpet, but you will find it quite a bit in area rugs. Advantages: it does wear well. It is resistant to alkalines, so you can actually clean this with a pretty high alkaline without doing any damage to it. However, when we get into upholstery, you'll see that can cause some problems. It is very soft, so it feels great. And one major advantage is it's stronger when wet. Now, we do get into this more when we're doing upholstery, but that's important. If something's weaker when you get it wet, you got to be very careful when you clean it. Not so with the cotton, which is going to be stronger when we're wet. It is the most absorbent fiber, so it's going to have a long dry time unless you have some blowers on it, you have a hot day, things like that. Put it out in the sun. Many ways that we can dry things that have long dry times. It is affected by acids, so it's not going to be, you can't use just anything you want on it. You have to be a little bit careful with the acids. It does mat, and it tends to want to soil really fast. It's absorbent, so if it's on an area rug that gets a lot of traffic, or if there's a pet in the home and it lays on this rug, the oils are going to want to stick. It's going to want to absorb. Now this number 5 here, very susceptible to cellulosic browning. Cellulosic browning is, if we take like a sofa that has what is called a Haitian cotton construction out of it. What that means is if you're looking at those cotton plants up there, and as they take that cotton off the plant, they put it in a truck, they transport it, and then they start combing it and washing it. A Haitian cotton keeps the cotton seeds. There's little tiny seeds inside that little ball of cotton, and if they're not removed completely, they tend to get crushed, and there's little tiny brown pieces of seed that end up in the fiber itself. That seed, when it gets wet, wants to turn brown on you. So that's what cellulosic browning is. Now, in carpet construction, there is it's not cotton, but a backing material called jute, and we'll cover later on, that if it gets wet, it will have a cellulosic browning as well, which means as it dries, your carpet, or the tips of your carpet, turn brown where you cleaned it, and that's because it was gotten too wet, and the cellulosic material turned brown and came up to the tips. It is subject to shrinking, mildews because it stays wet too long, and oxidation. Oxidation will shorten the life of the fiber significantly. So there's jute, again primarily in the backing yarns. Not as much today as it used to be. Most all carpet in the past was made with a jute back. And jute over time tended to get brittle. It would give you a cellulosic browning problem, so it would turn brown at the tips, and you'd have to go back and clean it again. So not so much anymore. Most everything is synthetic now, so you don't see a lot of jute. Advantages: it's economical, it's strong when dry. Okay, so that is important. It's strongest when it's dry. Compatible with latex, so it's great for construction. It allows for a good stretch in, so it's really resilient. It will give a good stretch, but it's not going to be too weak. Disadvantages: it's weaker when it's wet, so you got to be careful. You don't want to get it soaking wet, or if you're in a water damage situation, it could give you a problem. It is also subject to cellulosic browning like we talked about with the cotton, so you want to be careful not get this item too wet. It's subject to mildew. Dry rot is a problem if it gets wet, and then, or if it's an area where it's constantly got moisture to it, it can dry rot on you or just kind of just falls apart. And it is also subject to shrinkage. So yeah, again, water can be a problem with this product. Typically not on those the backing of the carpet, but if it's used in a face fiber or a woven product, it can cause a problem. Sisal, fibers taken from the agave plant. It's used primarily and makes ropes, sacks, rugs, things like that. This fiber is going to stain easily. It's difficult to clean. You want to probably use it with an absorbent powder type of cleaning. Bonnet cleaning work the best. Shrinkage is possible with this, so as you clean this rug, you might have a problem where the edges start to pick up on you. It's usually not a wall-to-wall installation, but an area rug, although there are wall-to-wall carpets out there. But as you clean an area rug, if this product shrinks, you'll notice that the edges want to pucker up and kind of lift on you. So that's a shrinkage as possible. You want to leave it as dry as possible. Other natural fibers, seagrass, abaca. Look onto the right there, you can kind of see what these look like. You're not going to see these often. Again, stay on the dry side. Absorbent powder is probably the way to go. Bonnet cleaning, something like that. Now in the natural fibers area, we have rayon. So yes, it's natural, but it's also synthetic. It's made from cotton waste mixed with sodium hydroxide. It absorbs water like cotton, but unlike cotton, it is what? It's weaker when it's wet. So you got to be very careful with this product, especially in upholstery. If you have a rayon product, you may not want to wet clean it. It can lose as much as 50% of its strength. So be careful. A lot of rugs are made out of this product. A lot of people that have them think it's silk. It is not silk. It's rayon. They actually misname it. They've named it art silk. You also see it named as viscose. So if you see anything in a rug and it says art silk, says viscose, you may not want to clean it. It has some really big problems. It's very, very prone to turning brown on you. So if you're not fairly experienced at cleaning them, I would not clean it. Just leave it alone. Say this rug is not cleanable. Or you can give a name of a local rug person that can and will clean it, and they will charge them probably as much as the rug is worth to clean it. None of this is wall-to-wall, so you won't find this in a wall-to-wall installation. Again, it's weak when it's wet. Remember that. This product will get very weak when it's wet. 50% of its strength goes away when it's wet. It's low resiliency. It's not good with abrasion. It's damaged by acids. It's just a really, really bad product. So I would suggest you run away from any product made out of rayon, art silk, viscose, or any other name they come up with. Now we're going to look into synthetic fibers. So it's just like it sounds. It's synthetic. It's man-made. So it's a matter of putting some chemicals together and coming up with a product. So the starting chemicals typically are derived from the energy industry. So we have coal, natural gas products, petroleum. A lot of the fibers are made out of petroleum. You got any polyester, things like that. Olefin, it's all derived from petroleum. They're classified as thermoplastic resins. They start out as basically a polymer chip. It's just a little colored chip that's melted and that's put into an extruder. Now on the right hand side here in the top picture, that's an extruder. Looks like a shower head. Each one of those little streams coming out is liquid polymer. It's being forced through that device. It just kind of goes straight down into a cooling tube, and then it produces a continuous filament that will be sent through a crimping machine. So it goes through the crimper, and after it exits the crimper, you have a BCF filament. So it stands for bulk continuous filament. The crimped filaments may also be cut into short lengths. If they're cut, these are going to be staple fibers. So 6 to 8 inches long, it's called a staple fiber. The filaments they're made of different thicknesses. The thickness of the filament is going to be the denier of the filament. The denier can be controlled, adjusted in the size openings of this extruder. Nylon fibers Remember, they range about a 6 denier to a 24. So if you've got a 24, it's going to be typically commercial carpet. You have a 6, it's going to be a very soft residential carpet. In addition to the changing of the size of the fiber, they can also change and control the different shapes by changing the extruder. So as we look at these shapes, they've been developed over the years basically to improve the performance characteristics of the fibers. When we refer to the changes in the fiber, we call them the generations of the fibers. There's been 5 of these generations so far. Don't know if there's going to be any more, but as of right now, we have 5 generations. We're going to be looking at nylon fibers for this example. The first generation of nylon was clear and round. It made it for a very durable fiber, but the shape tended to magnify any abrasion, soil wear, so it acted like a magnifying glass. If you had any scratches or any soil just kind of distributed on the side or around the fibers, it would magnify that as the light passed through it, and it would just look really bad. So you'll see that I clean quite a bit of this still to this day, the first generation nylon, and it's just kind of dull. The colors weren't really shiny, they weren't real vibrant. So if you see a carpet that's overall dull, that's typically what it is. You have a first generation nylon. The color's still there, but it's just not real bright. Second generation incorporated what's called a modified cross section. This helped diffuse light as it passed through the fiber. It helps to hide abrasion, helps hide just about everything. Some of the different shapes, there was dog bone shape, kidney bone. Up on the right there, you see the trilobal. Looks like kind of a star. You have the kidney bean, the Antron 2, figure 2 there, and that's a proprietary fiber there. The third generation, we used a conductive fiber. So the problem with the first 2 generations is they were kind of staticky. You'd get shocked constantly just walking through your house. Basically, they put a carbon filament in the center of the fibers. The fourth generation, we're adding fluorochemicals. These are things like Scotchgard and Teflon. Basically, it's going to help that fiber not be absorbent to just about everything. Soils, oil, water. It will, as you're vacuuming a treated carpet, it will shed more soil. So make sure your customer knows that, yes, it does work, and they're going to actually have a better time getting the fibers clean just from regular vacuuming. Fifth generation, now we're getting into acid dye blockers. What that is it's just blocking normal food dyes. So if you're spilling a colored drink, could be a Gatorade or a Kool-Aid, it's going to block the color. It's not going to want to turn red on you. It will tend to want to rinse clean and not have a red color behind. It does work. It's not perfect, but it does work. So it depends on how it's been cleaned in the past. Somebody can strip those acid dye blockers. So there's tests that are available so we can check if those blockers are still active, and we can also add them. So if they have been stripped, that's something that we can do. As a cleaning professional, we can help to put those back. As you see here, this is what it kind of looks like when you have a carpet fiber. So you have all those little trilobal fibers, and they're twisted and put together, and then that's your carpet fiber. Each one of these is a yarn, so you have maybe 50 of those inside each yarn, and then the yarns are twisted up with other yarns. So that's kind of a macroscopic view of how your carpet fibers are going to look well as twisted into a multiply yarn. So there's the 5 generations. You'll find each one of these generations. You may not know. It's just a matter of year by year. Sometimes you can tell it's a first generation, like I said, if it's really dull. The colors are okay, but it's just kind of dull and not real bright. And all the way down to the 5th generation, which is the newer stuff. Anything that's come out recently is a 5th generation. Stretching. Another process that happens, and this happens as it's being extruded. So when it's still in its gel state, it's going to be stretched. The fibers do become stronger when they're stretched. And they also change in kind of structure a little bit. It starts out amorphous. It's just kind of a region that's not real. The molecules aren't aligned. So they're just kind of going everywhere. And the more you stretch it, it's going to turn into a crystalline state. It's going to line up the molecules. But as you do this, as those molecules align, it gives less and less chance that you're going to have a dye site in that area. Dye sites is how you dye the carpet. Anytime you dye the carpet, it's going to be absorbed into the amorphous region. The crystalline regions are going to have a little bit of a chance to be dyed, but if you want a carpet that's going to be dyed very easily, you're not going to want to stretch it as much. So at the manufacturer level, you can control how the final product's going to accept dyes. The more amorphous, the easier it's going to accept the dye. So the more you stretch it, the less it's going to dye. But that gives the manufacturer a lot of control over what can be done with each fiber at the dye state. So now we have plying. So when we looked at that microscopic view a few slides ago, we had the filaments that were made into yarns and the yarns twisted together. This is how the manufacturers will make multi-ply yarns. They'll take a yarn and then they'll ply it together with several others. So the singles are plied together, the new yarns are called multi-ply. As well as the amount of yarns that are plied together, the amount of twist can be regulated. Each one will give a desired effect. There's also air entangling. This is more used with staple fibers in commercial settings, with looped products, things like that. The yarn is passed in front of a high-pressure air jet, and this process basically just twists and mingles up the fibers into a single bundle of yarn. We have several other stages that this is going to go through: blending, carding, drafting. It's the process that takes staple fiber and blends it, combs it, which is carding, in order to make a longer yarn. This new yarn is called a shiver. These shivers are then drafted in order to align the fibers. After a number of drafts, it's spun down to a single yarn. So what we're looking at here is a manufacturing machine. If you went to a manufacturing plant, a carpet mill, this is what you would see. You see on the left there, you see a roll of carpet backing. That's all it is. It's just the backing. And then as it rolls through the machine, it's stitched. There's a series of needles, and each needle is threaded with one of those spools on the right-hand side there. Each one of those spools is going to be a single carpet fiber. It's going to be punched through that backing material, and it's going to come out on the other end as what's called gray goods. It's just undyed carpet material at the end of that machine. The 5th generation carpets require cleaning products that are designed to work with 5th generation carpets. So they're not going to do any damage. You can't just go down to the janitorial supply house and buy whatever's on the shelf, say, give me something strong, because you're going to damage the carpets. We'll learn a little bit right now about pH, which is basically, if you break it right down to the chemistry of it, it's a concentration of hydrogen atoms. That's all it is. It's just a measurement. The concentration dictates if a solution is acid, neutral, or alkaline. Now look at that meter below here, the pH scale. 7 is neutral, so right in the center there, neutral. It's not going to be acid, it's not going to be alkaline, it's just going to be neutral. Now anything above a 7 is alkaline. Anything below a 7, acid. Stain resist carpets recommend cleaning with a product of pH of 10 or under. You don't want to go over a 10 when you're cleaning a stain resist product. It will do damage. You don't want to damage the carpet you're cleaning. You want to leave it clean, but you also want to leave it in the condition that they purchased it in. Yes, there's going to be some wear on the product, but you can bring it back and you can remove that soil. The wear will still be there, but the carpet's going to be clean. It's not going to be damaged. So now we're going to kind of go into the different types of synthetic yarn, synthetic fibers. So the first one we're going to look at is nylon. So a little bit of history on nylon. It was invented in 1938. The gentleman by the name of Wallace Carruthers working for DuPont. So DuPont does own nylon. Basically, the patent for nylon fiber is owned by DuPont. You want to know that it's a negative charge on this fiber. So you don't want to use, when you have a fiber that's a negative charge, you don't want to use something that has a positive charge to clean it. So different cleaning products have different types of charges. So a positive charge cleaning product is going to be called a cationic. And when you hear cationic, just know I cannot use that cationic on my carpet. Cleaning products of this type are going to damage the acid dye resistors, which carry a negative charge. The positive charge will strip that acid dye resistor and will have no propensity to block the acid dyes, such as Kool-Aid, power drinks, things like that. You have two types of nylon. You have a type 6 or anso nylon, and then you have a type 6,6, which is antron wear dated. The 6 has better dyeability, but will degrade faster in sunlight. It has better elastic recovery as well as better fatigue resistance. It's more stable under heat, so it sounds really good, but that degrading faster in sunlight is really a big problem. So the Type 6,6 is a better product, even though it doesn't have quite the resiliency and some of the good things that the Type 6 does. It just doesn't fade, so it's not going to fade easily. Advantages, it's very resilient. The crushed yarns, if it looks like the carpet's been crushed, it can be recovered. It does hold a crimp really well, resists abrasion, better than most fibers. Although it does stain easily, the protectants tend to fix that problem. It can be damaged by really strong acids. I've seen that happen where it more or less melts the fibers together. So toilet bowl cleaners, things like that can really do a lot of damage. It can be stained by common food dyes. Common foods will stain it, although they can be cleaned out. Chlorine bleach does destroy nylon dyes, as it will with a lot of different things. Of course, you spill bleach on something, you're pretty much going to throw it in the garbage. Although you can re-dye nylon, so that's always something that we can look forward to in the later modules is how to re-dye products like nylon. There's a little bit of sun fading. That's how it looks when you have that nylon 6. It is susceptible to sun fading. So if you look to the right there, that rug's been down on that carpet for years, it's never taken up. The carpet around it's been exposed to sunlight. And that bond on the bottom there, there was a curtain there that protected the rest of the room from the sunlight. And that's a kind of a floor to ceiling window right there. So where that curtain came down and you could see that carpet was just right in direct sunlight, all that dye is gone. So nothing you can do other than re-dye that product. Problem is, you re-dye it, it's going to lose its dye again. So it's kind of not really worth re-dyeing a nylon 6. Unless it's in the middle of the room, it's kind of protected from sunlight, then you could do that. Now we got the PET polyester. So Winfield and Dixon patented PET polyester in 1941. In 1946, DuPont again purchased the rights to polyester, and then brought it to America in 1951, 1960s, first used in construction carpet. It feels and looks very similar to nylon. You have to do a test on it to find out what's what. However, if it's a little bit older, if it's maybe 3, 4, 5 years old, you can usually visually detect that it's probably polyester. Traffic lanes tend to crush easily, so your entryways to rooms, walkways, things like that are going to look a little bit different than a nylon carpet. It's going to want to crush, where the nylon will look significantly better after that period of time. It is color fast, stain resistant. It's better than nylon in those aspects. But like I said, it doesn't hold the crimp well. It crushes easily, and you cannot recover it. So advantages, it is abrasion resistant. It resists water-based stains. It's very color fast. And it resists sun fading. It is recyclable, so it does come from plastic bottles, 2 liters. Disadvantages, it crushes easily. So within 6 months, usually I've seen polyester carpets start to crush. It doesn't hold a crimp well, so that's another reason why it tends to crush. And it absorbs oils. Some of these carpet fibers are made or come from the oil industry. So if it's made from oil, if it's made from petroleum, it's going to attract petroleum. So keep that in mind. Now we got PTT, Triexta. This is a newer, it's all relative, but newer, 1941. It started as a subclass of polyester. It was classified this as a polyester, but as time went by, it kind of got its own class. It's not considered a polyester anymore. It performs differently. So it is called a Triexta. It's softer than polyester. It's more stain resistant and more durable. The durability is similar to nylon. Not exactly not like nylon, not as good, but they're getting better. It is resistant to acid dyes, has good durability. It's close to nylon, like I said, and it's made from corn. It's a green product. A lot of that is really, customers are looking for that right now. So you might see more and more of that. The market share is growing on Triexta. Disadvantages, it's got a short track record. We don't know a lot about how it's going to be in 20 years. Things like that. People keep their carpet for a long time. If it holds up for the first 10 really well, but really falls apart after the second 10, then it's not going to be that great of a carpet. Oils do tend to stick to it, so it's going to want to attract the oils. So you're going to have to treat it a little bit more aggressively, like a polyester. You can use a little bit higher pH on this carpet and get those oils to come off. Now we have olefin, and this is the last fiber we're going to look at. Olefin says Italy 1957, and then in America in 1960. It's unique. This fiber is 100% solution dyed. That means the color is in the fiber. It's dyed, if you can imagine this, like a carrot. So you have color all the way through the fiber, as opposed to all the other fibers, or I should say some of the other fibers that are dyed more like a radish. So you have dye only on the outside. You cut that fiber open and it's just dyed on the outside. So what that means for olefin is you're not going to bleach it out. You could dump bleach on olefin. It won't harm it one bit. So the color will not remove from an olefin. Another thing that makes it unique is it hates water. It is hydrophobic. So one problem with this carpet in a commercial setting, you start applying water and the water is just going to sink right through it. Ends up on the base of the carpet, and then you have dirt back there. Then you're having a problem with wicking soils and things like that, and we'll talk about in later modules. It's also not affected by acids or alkalines. It's just really strong. Some major faults, though, is that it crushes. It crushes worse than polyester. It crushes fast, and it's not recoverable. And one of the main disadvantages of this fiber is a low melting point, and I mean really low. You could drag a chair across it, and you're going to melt the carpet, and that's permanent. You'll see that a lot in offices where somebody has moved a desk from one side of the room to the other, and now they have a long, kind of a brownish grayish streak that they expect you to remove, and you have to explain to them that, no, that is a permanent problem. It's actually melted. Advantages is it is dye stable. It's not going to ever lose its dye, and it will not shrink. That makes it really great in construction for the backings of materials. It is, however, the least resilient. It crushes extremely easily. That's why earlier in this module I told you it's used in commercial setting where it's formed into loops rather than fibers. Oil is going to tend to stick to it, and it sticks really bad to an olefin. Olefin just loves oil. In fact, we've called it oil-lovin because it loves oil so much. It is affected by abrasion some. That's got that really low melt temperature, and it's going to want to tend to wick soil after cleaning. That's because it hates the water. So as the water settles down, hits the soil at the base, and as it's drying, wants to pull that soil back up to the top. All right, so that's it for fibers. This module continues in the next one. So hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you in the next one.